Have you ever sat alone at night and wondered, is it too late for love to find me again? Maybe you've loved deeply, lost greatly, or simply grown apart with time. But what if love isn't bound by age, but by readiness? What if your next great love story is still waiting to begin? Love is one of the most powerful forces in life. It lifts us, breaks us, teaches us, and heals us. And yet, somewhere along the way, many of us start believing that love belongs to the young. That once we pass a certain age, it quietly exits the room, leaving behind only memories. But that couldn't be further from the truth. The need for connection, for intimacy, for being truly seen. These desires don't vanish with age. In fact, they often grow deeper, more meaningful. After decades of life, raising families, building careers, surviving loss, we begin to understand what truly matters: companionship, shared laughter, a hand to hold. This isn't about fairy tales anymore. This is about real, lasting love, built on trust, acceptance, and shared growth. Love has no expiration date, and it certainly doesn't discriminate based on how many candles are on your birthday cake. Everyone deserves love, and that includes you, right now, right here. I remember a woman named Carol. She was 62 when she told me her story. I thought my days of romantic dinners and late-night phone calls were long gone, she said with a soft smile. After my husband passed away, I spent 10 years alone. I busied myself with gardening, volunteering at the library, and pretending I didn't miss the sound of someone calling my name from another room. One day, on a whim, Carol signed up for an online book club. That's where she met Thomas. He lived 2 towns over. At first, they argued about Hemingway. Then they laughed over Jane Austen. And then something shifted. One week, he didn't show up, and she realized she missed him. The following meeting, he was back and asked if she wanted to meet for coffee. I felt like a teenager, she said. I stood in front of my closet for 30 minutes trying to choose an outfit. I even changed my earrings 3 times. And that's just it. Love doesn't care how old we are. It sneaks up when we least expect it. Then there's Daniel. He was 59, divorced for over a decade, with grown children who encouraged him to get out there again. He laughed off the suggestion until he found himself dancing at his niece's wedding with a woman named Evelyn. She was elegant, confident, and had a laugh that made the whole room turn. They talked about their grandchildren, their favorite songs from the 70s, and how tired they both were of pretending to enjoy small talk. I thought I was too set in my ways to love again, Daniel told me. But with Evelyn, it didn't feel like starting over. It felt like coming home. And then there's Nora. She never married. Career first, she always said. By the time she retired, she was 65 and had never been kissed under the stars. So, she booked a solo trip to Italy. On her 3rd night in Florence, she met a retired painter named Luca, who offered to show her the city at night. He didn't try to impress me, she said. He just listened. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to prove anything. They wrote letters after she returned home. Handwritten. Weeks turned into months. And now? She's moving to Tuscany next spring. These stories, Carol's, Daniel's, Nora's, are not fairy tales. They're real. They're proof that love at a later age doesn't look like the movies. It looks like morning walks with coffee in hand. It looks like conversations without pretense. It looks like holding hands not because you're nervous, but because you're grateful. Love at this stage isn't about perfection. It's about presence. It's about showing up for each other, wrinkles and all, with hearts that have been broken, healed, and still remain open. Because love, true, quiet, and steady, often finds us when we're no longer chasing it. There's one story I keep close to my heart, perhaps because it changed the way I understand love forever. Her name was Margaret. She was 70, a retired teacher, widowed for 15 years. She had a quiet life, a neat home, and a garden full of roses her husband once planted. Every morning she watered them. Every evening she sat alone with a book. Life was peaceful, predictable, but something was missing. I stopped expecting surprises, she told me. I thought my story was already written. Then came Henry. He moved into the house next door with his daughter and grandson. He was 73, a retired architect with a crooked smile and a habit of humming Sinatra tunes under his breath. Their first conversation was about roses. "You take good care of them," he said one morning from across the fence. She smiled. "My husband planted them. I just keep them alive." That was it, just a moment. But something shifted, a seed planted. Over time, they exchanged more than small talk. It started with shared recipes, then late afternoon teas. Margaret discovered Henry loved crosswords, so she clipped them from the newspaper for him. He found out she adored lemon pie, so he baked one for her birthday. "I hadn't celebrated my birthday in years," she whispered. But that night, I did. One evening, under the fading orange light of early autumn, Henry asked if she'd like to go dancing. "I haven't danced in decades," she laughed. "Then it's time," he said, extending his hand. In the community center that Friday night, surrounded by couples half their age, Margaret danced, slowly, carefully, but fully. "When he held my hand," she said, "it didn't feel like starting something new. It felt like remembering something I thought I'd lost." What touched me most wasn't just the sweetness of their connection. It was how seen she felt. "For years, I felt invisible," she said. "Like the world had moved on and forgotten me. But with him, I'm not background. I'm the story." That's the power of love, especially later in life. It doesn't erase our pain, but it wraps around it gently. It says, "I see you. I value your story. Let's write the next chapter together." Margaret and Henry taught me that love isn't about butterflies anymore. It's about stillness, safety, soulful companionship. It's when someone remembers how you like your tea, notices when you're quiet, holds your hand not because it's romantic, but because it matters. That dance? It wasn't just a dance. It was a moment of reclaiming joy, of choosing connection, of daring to believe that love could arrive at 70 with just as much meaning, perhaps more, than it did at 25. Love, real love, transforms us. Not through grand gestures, but through the quiet courage of showing up again. Margaret's story isn't rare. It just isn't told enough. But it should be. Because stories like hers remind us, love doesn't follow a timeline. It simply follows the heart. As the stories unfold, something beautiful becomes clear. While each journey to love is unique, the deeper themes are universal. Resilience, hope, self-love. These aren't just poetic words. They're the cornerstones of late-in-life love. Because before love can arrive, truly arrive, we often have to find our way back to ourselves. I met a man named Charles, 67, who once told me, "I spent so many years trying to be strong for everyone else, my kids, my coworkers, my aging parents, that I forgot how to be soft for myself." It wasn't until retirement that he allowed himself the space to reflect. He started hiking again, meditating, writing in a journal. "At first, I just wrote what I ate," he laughed, Mom. "But then I started writing what I felt. That's when I realized I hadn't truly loved myself in decades." That self-awareness changed everything, and not long after, love found him, quietly, naturally. There's also something to be said about the courage it takes to love again after loss. Whether it's the end of a long marriage, the grief of a partner's passing, or simply years of solitude, it takes a special kind of bravery to open your heart once more. But again and again, people do it. Like Teresa, 58, who after her divorce said, "I felt like damaged goods. Who would want me with my wrinkles, my baggage, my story?" But one day, at her local community center, she joined a cooking class, and beside her stood a man who admired how she chopped onions. It started with laughter, then shared dinners, then quiet confessions about broken hearts and second chances. "He never tried to fix me," she said. "He just sat beside me while I healed." That's what love often looks like now, not rushing, not demanding, but witnessing. And as we grow older, something else becomes clear. We no longer love to complete ourselves. We love to share ourselves. We've learned how to enjoy our own company, how to find peace in silence, how to fill our time with purpose and joy. But when someone enters who adds to that joy without taking away your independence, that's gold. And so many of these stories, though different on the surface, reflect the same truth. Love doesn't erase your past, it respects it. Love doesn't make you forget who you were, it honors who you've become. And, perhaps most beautifully, love at this stage doesn't try to mold you into someone new. It embraces the wholeness you already are. Wrinkles, laugh lines, scars, stories, everything. So if you're sitting here thinking it might be too late, it's not. Because love doesn't care how many years have passed. It cares how open your heart still is. And if you're willing to listen, to stay open, to show up for yourself first, love has a way of finding its way back to you. So what does it all mean? What are we meant to take away from these stories of Carol, Daniel, Nora, Margaret, Henry, Charles, and Teresa? It means that love is not a race with a finish line. It's a lifelong journey that doesn't expire with time, but instead deepens with age, with wisdom, and with the courage to stay open. Too often, the world tells us that love is for the young, that passion fades, and companionship is a consolation prize. But that's not true. The truth is, love matures, just like we do. It becomes less about proving ourselves and more about being seen. It becomes less about drama and more about depth. It's no longer about needing someone, but about choosing someone. And that choice, made consciously, tenderly, with full awareness of what life has already given and taken away, is one of the most powerful acts of love there is. You see, when we love at 50, 60, 70, or beyond, we're not building castles in the sky. We're planting gardens. Gardens that require patience, attention, presence. We don't rush into forever anymore. We appreciate every single moment. A shared breakfast, a quiet walk, a glance across the room that says, "I'm still here. I still choose you." And that's the beauty of love later in life. It's not naive. It's not hurried. It's not based on fantasy. It's rooted in reality. And yet, somehow, it's still filled with magic. So, if you've ever felt like you missed your chance, if you've looked in the mirror and seen only years gone by instead of possibilities ahead, let this remind you. You are not too late. You are not too old. You are not invisible. You are still becoming. And somewhere out there, maybe closer than you think, is someone becoming too. Someone who's learned their own lessons. Someone who has their own scars. Someone who's not looking for perfection, but for presence. And if love finds you again, or even for the very first time, let it in. Not as a rescue, but as a recognition. Not as a fantasy, but as a quiet revolution. Because loving again isn't about forgetting the past. It's about embracing everything that brought you to this moment. It's about saying, I've lived, I've lost, I've learned, and still, I'm open. And what could be more beautiful, more courageous than that? So wherever you are in your journey, whether you're newly single, long divorced, widowed, or simply waiting, know this: the story isn't over. Love may take its time, but it always knows where to find us when we're ready. If any part of this story touched your heart, if you saw yourself in Margaret, or Daniel, or Teresa, I invite you to share your own journey in the comments below. Whether you've already found love later in life, or you're still holding space for it, your story matters. You never know who might be inspired by your words, who might feel a little less alone because of your courage. And if you believe, like I do, that love has no age limit, please give this video a like. It helps more people see messages that heal and uplift. Subscribe if you'd like to hear more stories like this, real stories, full of honesty, hope, and heart. Because this channel isn't just about telling stories, it's about building a community, a space where love, in all its forms, is honored and celebrated, no matter how late it arrives. Thank you for watching, and remember, you are never too old to be loved, to love again, and to begin a beautiful new chapter.